This is an important message for anyone newly eligible for Medicare or who qualifies for a special election period.
This card I'm holding in my hand, it's an example of an all-in-one Medicare.
Hello everyone, Prince Dokato here, and today we have a really kind of special topic before I get into other things. We are going to be talking about, well, what today's infamous for in America, although it seems more and more that the younger generation does not know about this day. This day is Pearl Harbor, the first attacks on the American military power really since World War One. And we're going to be talking about some of the facts leading up to it, as well as exploring some really cool Minecraft maps that are based around Japanese or World War II themes. I'm not going to really go into deep dives on what each of these maps are, but I will be using the maps to help explain some of what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to wait at kind of another 4 minutes really before I get deep into what I'm going to talk about. But this has been a really fun time. I've had the great opportunity to talk to many survivors of both Pearl Harbor and World War II and gotten lots of their stories. I've been to Pearl Harbor to see it and just see some of the ships that are still sunk in that harbor today. So I figured this will be a perfect time. I'm going to try to explain a fuller version of the events that most people seem to be kind of glancing over when they talk about Pearl Harbor. And if you have any information that you would like to bring to this discussion, please put it in the chat. I am so looking forward to having a very interesting discussion around Pearl Harbor and the events leading up to and after Pearl Harbor, including the Battle of Midway. This is all stuff that I'm really interested in, so feel free to not hold back one bit. I'm also going to be doing a Men of War stream later on so we can talk about some of the more minute details of World War II, many of which I still am learning. But we all know that World War II was the era of the battleship and the changing of the guard, as we kind of now know. It wasn't... Battleships, while they were still very amazing in their own right, they were coming out of favor with many people. For example, the aircraft carrier just started to become more viable overall, especially with it being able to send troops longer distances to inflict more harm on the enemy while keeping your ships safe. which was huge for that time period. So that's going to be a very interesting side topic that we're going to have. But once again, we're going to give it about 2 more minutes before I get into the stream. And we're going to start off with a treaty, because treaties are amazing. And then we'll use some sound effects to help out in the background. So if you'll keep up with me there, I'll hopefully see you guys soon. Once again, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Prince Dokato here. In a little under 50... Sorry, my mind's going blank now. In a little under 58 minutes, the Japanese on 1941 would have reached the island of Oahu, and in such would have inflicted the greatest devastation America has seen in a long time. We're going to start this off in a Japanese garden. I know it doesn't look very Japanese, but it's because it's Minecraft. But let's put this into context. We're going to start with a little bit of talking about the 1920s. And therefore, we're going to go into some jazz music from America. World War I has just ended. Many of the powers that are still surviving are surviving by just a thread, and if that, they're also just barely surviving through the help of American and foreign assets. So they're trying their best right now. And therefore, a lot of them are also thinking about what's going to happen next. Many of them don't even want to talk about what will more likely come if nothing is done about what happened with the First World War. Germany is right now going to the Treaty of Versailles, and they are, in a way, getting stiffed. They are being put on with harsh regulations, harsh treatment, and even harsher just attitude towards the Germans for causing World War I, as many of the Europeans see. World War I is a whole another story, and it has so many complex parts, so I'm not going to try to get into that too much. Instead, I'm going to try to focus on World War II and the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So, what's going to happen is the world's going to get divided back into circles of power, circles of influence, to be honest. And one of these circles is revolving around Asia. Asia is this hot spot of colonization, trying to expand, trying to get the best of the best out there. And because of this, both America and Britain have a lot invested into China and Chinese borders. The only place that they don't really have anything invested into is Japan, because Japan has firmly denied all attempts at colonialization, and instead has taken on the role of colonizer, which is very weird. It's kind of this moment that Europeans look at with just a weird eye, because we're not used to seeing other powers that are not westernized trying to colonize other places. And Japan is doing the exact same thing as us. So, in a way, they're following us, but we're not liking that they're following us. And we're not liking how Japan is just seeing us as equals. It's a really weird situation all the way around. And thus, we're going to go back here, and we're going to go to the U-boats. Japan is also starting to come at odds with Britain and America specifically over colonization in Asia. The reasoning for this is, well, Japan's an island. And when you're an island, especially Europeans have to understand this mindset, you really have two ways of going about defending yourself. A strong navy or a very strong army. Britain went with the strong navy. Germany went with the strong army. And Japan went with a strong army with a side of a navy. And the reasoning for this is Japan just didn't have the resources or really the care to go into naval tactics. And that's evidenced by some of their earlier campaigns, such as the ones in Korea, which were more of retaliation attacks from the Mongol Empire. They knew Korea helped, but they didn't know exactly to what extent. And this is also where we're going to bring up another term, which is the term kamikaze. It's not really a suicide thing, which is what's funny to me. Kamikaze comes from two words, kame, or kami, which is God, and kaze, which means wind. So kamikaze means divine wind. And you may be thinking, well, I probably already know that, and why are you telling me this? The simple reason is, it's not the divine wind that most people have been saying it is. When it comes to divine wind, the kamikaze is actually a hurricane that came around in the Mongol invasions and wiped out the Mongol fleet, saving Japan. And this is why Japan has always kind of kept to a small move between their islands navy. They've not really had to maintain a large navy, and unlike Germany, they didn't have to fight over resources coming from foreign areas. They could maintain themselves pretty well. In fact, they did so all the way up until the 1800s pretty decently because they had been in isolation. And they didn't need European or modern powers to stay in isolation. It was only until 1863 that America came in with a certain man named Commodore Perry. And he, in the 1850s, kind of stumbled across Japan and gave them an ultimatum. They could either join the rest of the world in modernization, or they could get bombed out of existence. As many Japanese sources will tell you, America kind of has a different twist on it, which is you can either join us in modernization or we can colonize you and help you, which is the kind of more modern American look, but not really what happened. So we go into this whole America is kind of this evil being to the Japanese, but they're also one of the biggest things that Japan looks up to aside from Germany. And it's interesting that Japan sided with America in the First World War